2, 1.
Good evening. Welcome to tonight's meeting of the Fort Wayne Community Schools Board of School Trustees. We're so pleased to have so many of you with us tonight. We would ask that you stand and join with us in our Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
One of our members is not with us tonight due to an accident at home. He's recovering fine. There's nothing serious, but we gave him the night off. So that having been said, we'll start with our introduction of members. To my far right, Steve.
Thank you. Good evening. My name is Steve Corona, and I represent the folks from the 5th District.
Good evening. I'm Glenna Yale, and I'm from the 2nd District.
And I'm Becky Hill from the 3rd District.
Julie Hollingsworth, District 1.
I'm Ann Duff. I represent the district at large.
My name's Mark Giaquina. I'm an at-large member of the school district. Seated to my far left is Angela Filler, who is filling in for Barbara Trout and will serve as clerk to the board tonight. And next to Angela is Dr. Wendy Robinson, our school superintendent. I want to say good evening to you, Dr. Robinson. Thank you for hosting the Teacher of the Year event or reception prior to the meeting. We'll hear more about that as the meeting goes on. So we begin with the awards and recognitions, starting with the 2016-2017 Teacher of the Year finalists. Am I on the right? Mm-hmm. Okay, good. Sometimes I worry that I'll bring the wrong packet and I'm doing last meeting's awards. All right. It's recommended that the board recognize the teachers who were finalists for the 2016-2017 Fort Wayne Community School Teacher of the Year. Each year, principals nominate a teacher for the important Fort Wayne Community School Teacher of the Year selection. A committee comprised of the district's employees narrows the number of nominees to a much smaller group of finalists. They are then individually interviewed. The committee listens to what they have to say and selects an overall winner. With so many outstanding teachers in Fort Wayne Community Schools, of course, the process is hardly an easy one. We'd like to recognize the finalists for the fine work they're doing educating our students, the dedication, the passion. Please come forward as your name is read so that we may recognize you publicly and give you our heartfelt thanks. Benjamin McIntosh, social study teachers at Lane Middle School. Ben. We'd like Mark Bailey, the principal at Lane, to step forward with Ben. Also, Julie Cox, chemistry teacher at Wayne High School. John Hauser, principal. Erica Klee. Erica is a visual arts teacher at Shawnee Middle School. Matt Schiebel, principal. How's the temperature upstairs at Shawnee today, man? Much better. Okay. The last time I was there, everybody was drenched, so that's good to hear. Sherry Shepard, visual arts teacher at Northside High School, along with David West. If David is here, the principal of Northside. And we're good.
Families, do you want pictures? Anybody? Okay.
And now for the big enchilada, right? This is the important one. It's been recommended that the board recognize Wayne New Tech Social Studies teacher Jeffrey Roberts as the district teacher of the year. and a top 10 finalist for the Indiana Teacher of the Year. Hold your applause. We'll get to that, though, believe me. Jeff Roberts began his teaching career 15 years ago, which included a stint at Memorial Park, and our kids were lucky enough to have Jeff in the classroom. He's been at New Tech Academy at Wayne High School for 4 years. He was selected as Fort Wayne Community School Teacher of the Year due to his passion providing a rigorous education in an environment that helps students understand the relevance of what it is they are learning. Jeff knows that rigor and relevance can't truly be developed without relationship building. His students are successfully challenged and pushed because each one knows that he cares about them. And that's why they remember Jeff. Jeff pointed out to me just yesterday he exchanged communication with one of my daughters long after she left his classroom. But that's what you call relationship building. Dr. Robinson said this about Jeff. He's a valuable member not only of the New Tech team and Wayne family, but also of the district as a whole. He doesn't look at his students as mere students. He treats them as he would his own children, which means he holds them to high standards, but he's also compassionate when he knows they are struggling. Whether it's inside the building or outside the building, Jeff is there for them. He's creating leaders who are ready for college or careers after graduation by teaching them the skills they need to become problem solvers. Well said, Dr. Robinson. Jeff Roberts, we are honored to have you as part of our district, and we ask that you come forward now so that we may recognize and congratulate you. And John Hauser, if you'd come up as well. And oh, good. And Emily. Thanks, Emily.
Family pictures, are we done? Oh, wait, get back up here. This entire side is the Roberts contingent.
And Jeff, the microphone's over here to your left. When you're done, we'd love to have you say a few words.
Go practice what you're going to say when you go to state.
As I said upstairs for the reception, there's not a day that doesn't go by that I don't love my job. There's not a day that doesn't go by that I don't love my students. I make sure that every single one of them from day 1 to day 180, each school year, they know that I care about them first and foremost, and eventually they realize that I am challenging them more than anybody else. I'm hoping that they understand how much problem solving they get in class and how much I'm trying to get them to connect with the community and give them opportunities later on in life. It's truly an honor to represent you guys and every single staff member in Fort Wayne Community Schools. I promise that I'll represent well for the rest of my life in this district. I went to Northside High School. I'm very, very proud of that. I'm very proud to know that through all the diversity and all the differentiated groups within our community, that we do the best job of any district in the state to make sure that every single student gets the same opportunities. And hopefully that continues. I love my staff at New Tech Academy because we are family, and they know that. They've made a huge difference in my life. I want to thank Liz Bryan for nominating me. I want to thank my mom for giving me inspiration, my brother for giving me inspiration every day, my sister for showing me how to be a good parent on a day-to-day basis, my brother Chris, how to make sure we allow kids to use their hands on a day-to-day basis so they understand what they're doing. And I want to thank most my wife, Jennifer, for supporting me every single day. She sees me up and down, but I wouldn't take it any other way. I love this district, and I'm truly humbled and honored to have this award.
We
Thank
love you back.
Thank you.
Okay, we're going to pause for a moment. Robert's family.
We lose half the room. Bye.
See ya.
Bye.
Thanks for coming.
Come again.
Not on the agenda.
Yeah.
Oh, we got an add-on. Okay.
Yeah, we did.
Okay, thanks. Got it, okay. Got it.
I think they want to stay, but.
Consent agenda. For those of you new to our meetings, the consent agenda is a part of the agenda that involves issues of a recurring nature. Tonight's consent agenda consists of the approval of the minutes from our meeting on August 22nd, approval of the vouchers and payroll approvals, along with the personnel report. We always ask Dr. Robinson whether or not there's anything in the personnel report. Nothing tonight? Okay. So with that, we'll entertain a motion and a second to approve the consent agenda.
So moved.
Second.
All those in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Anybody opposed? So carried. So the consent agenda is approved. Thank you, board members. We move to new business, and there are a couple matters here with regard to the building project. The first is the appointment of project architect for school for the building project, and let me get to that. Oops. Yeah, oh, here it is, okay, I think it's it. Oh, thanks. Recommendation that we approve the appointment of project architects and engineers for the following school projects. Those are the North Crest and Washington Elementary window replacement projects. H2 Design LLC has been selected as the architect engineer. We're required by state law for any project over $100,000 to use a registered architect or a professional engineer, so we're doing that. And the cost, the design contract fee is $95,400. The estimated construction budget is $1,352,300. So this is, these names are kind of coming around the second time. We're familiar with most of them. Pretty good work for the district in phase one. We'll entertain a motion and a second to approve the appointment.
So
So
moved.
moved. Second.
Okay, a motion and a second. Any further discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Anybody opposed? So carried. The next is the resolution regarding the community school building corp. This is a finance recommendation or resolution. The board has to pass a resolution to approve the execution of the First Amendment of the master lease with Fort Wayne Community Schools Building Corp. and other related matters. It's further recommended the board pass a resolution to approve the appropriation of all bond proceeds and interest earned on the bond proceeds. So what we basically do in these situations, same thing all governmental entities do. They have building corporations that allow them to transact the financial end of the projects, and that's done in order to make available to bond purchasers certain tax incentives, and that is the basis upon which our funding essentially comes to us. So the resolution after the voter approval of the 2012 referendum, the board first entered into a master lease on April 29, 2013. Approval of the First Amendment allows for financing the projects approved by a majority of the voters who voted for the 2016 referendum. So there it is. The First Amendment provides for a maximum annual lease rental payment of $10,800,000, which is in addition to the maximum annual lease rental payment currently being paid under the master lease for a term not to exceed 22 years from the date each addendum to the First Amendment is recorded. The additional annual lease rental payment will provide sufficient annual revenues to allow the building corporation to issue bonds in an original aggregate issued amount not to exceed $129,950,557 as approved by the voters. So there you have it. That's how the deal is set up. The number, the 129 million, should not come as a surprise to anybody. That was the amount that voters agreed to, and these are the technical documents that allow for that financial arrangement to go into effect. Okay. Yes.
Question. The master lease is being amended. In the past, you guys just passed an addendum that kind of continued the lease? Is that how the arrangement was in the past?
Yeah, and I mean, I've tried to put this in pretty simple terms, but we're amending. This is the first amendment to the existing master lease, which was the original bond issue, and it just continues that same agreement into effect to allow us to add the 129 million to it. So.
Okay, and then the 10 million additional rent monies, is that due to this new, the new bond that we're going to be doing?
So it's kind of an inflow and outflow. The money comes in and the money goes back out. I mean, it's a little bit, we talk about it like a lease, and you think about it like leasing an apartment, but it's really not like that. I mean, we're taking the assets of the corporation, and those are pledged to give the people who buy the bonds significant the degree of security they need to purchase the bonds, and that's about it. So Rod has transacted this over a period of years to keep the tax rate equal, and that's the term that was selected to do that. And as you'll all recall, that was arrived at in a way to take advantage of other debt that will be coming off as the new debt goes on. So we've had this explained to us in a way that has allowed us to accurately describe it to the voters without getting overly technical on how tax-exempt bonds work. But the basic analysis is that the payment structure exists in a way to keep the tax rates the same for the voter or for the property owners in Allen County.
Mr. President, Jim Elizondo is here from the firm too.
Yep.
So he's present for additional information if we need it.
So is there any further information that needs? I mean, Kathy, has anything changed from the manner in which this was described to us?
No, I think you explained it. It's just that you need the First Amendments or so that you can add all of the information about the second referendum, so that it has the maximum amount we can issue debt for, and then a maximum lease payment, and so that we can keep that tax rate at the 0.3028 maximum rate that we set ourselves as our goal, so that we would only raise the rate 10.5 cents from the time that we started this process.
Okay, and then what is the current rental payment amount? Because this 10,800,000 is being added to that.
Yeah,
So what is that amount?
The budget that I went over with you this week, or last week, with the debt service payments, that shows the difference between the regular debt service and the referendum debt service, and I'll be bringing that on the 26th when I present the budget. But so the final debt service will be a combination of the old referendum and the new referendum. So the amount is, do you know, around 20 million, I think, something like that, the combination of the two. I can get back with you and get the exact number for you.
Okay.
Any further questions? Hearing none, can we have a motion and a second on this resolution?
So moved.
Second.
Okay, so the motion is to approve the resolution of the Board of School Trustees regarding the approval of the execution of the First Amendment to the master lease and matters related thereto. And it's all included in your packets. Does everyone have a copy of the resolution? So you've all had an opportunity to review that? Mm-hmm. All right, well, having seen all the board members here indicate that they have in fact received the resolution. They've had an opportunity to review that. I'm not going to read it line by line. We will, at this time, however, ask for all those in favor of the resolution to signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Is there anyone opposed to the resolution? Hearing no one, the resolution is then approved. And we'll go on to the next agenda item. That's all we have on that, is it not, Kathy? Okay. The next matter is a resolution for the board with respect to the business personal property tax. And I guess I can, do we have?
We didn't do a
Yeah,
recommendation.
no, that's
because it wasn't
okay,
coming
good.
from
No,
me.
you didn't need to, so that's
Yeah.
good. So, and I'll do the intro on that. It's recommended that we approve a resolution regarding the business personal property tax. And the reason this is before us is that there is a proposal before the Fort Wayne City Council with respect to a proposal to eliminate the business personal property tax. And I think that the best way to present this is to simply read the resolution, then open it up for discussion. The resolution reads as follows. Whereas an ordinance has been introduced by the Fort Wayne City Council, Councilman R, actually not the entire council, but Councilman R to the Fort Wayne City Council, that would eliminate the business personal property tax as a funding source for Allen County governmental units. And whereas repeal of the business personal property tax will result in a significant reduction in funding for Fort Wayne community schools, and whereas the funding lost to Fort Wayne community schools as a result of the repeal of this tax will likely result in a reduction in bus service, maintenance of buildings, and the ability to service existing debt. And whereas the parents of Fort Wayne community schools have expressed strong support for maintaining transportation services for their children, which will be reduced further should the Fort Wayne City Council take away the funding of those services. And whereas there is no existing plan to replace the funding lost to the Fort Wayne community schools as a result of the proposed repeal of the business personal property tax, and whereas the Indiana Constitution limits, constitutional limits on real property taxation prevents Fort Wayne community schools from making up the loss of funding by shifting the burden to real property, because much of the real estate within the district boundaries is already at the 1% constitutional limit. And whereas Fort Wayne Community Schools already loses over $7 million annually as a result of the tax caps in place, which has forced the reduction of bus service to its students. And whereas there is no empirical evidence that the repeal of the business personal property tax will result in additional job growth or business expansion, therefore, be it resolved, the Board of School Trustees of Fort Wayne Community Schools opposes the repeal of the business personal property tax by the Fort Wayne City Council. The board further resolves to invite members of the Fort Wayne City Council to attend the upcoming budget sessions of the Fort Wayne Community Schools in order to understand the impact of the Indiana constitutional tax caps on the operation of the district. And I apologize, I typed this myself. I thought it might be cleaned up a little bit, but it wasn't. So it's a little hard to read in places, but in any event, good. Well, the spacing isn't quite right, but the reason this is important is the resolution tries to drive home the point that whether the tax is a good tax or a bad tax is really not the point. It may be a horrendous tax. We didn't create the tax, but the state legislature has put together a system under which all governmental units are funded, and they involve all of these revenue sources. When in the past it has been determined that a tax needs to go, like the inventory tax, for example, the legislature moved the remaining funding sources around to ensure that the funding would be available to meet the needs of the various governmental units. They didn't simply do away with a tax and say, oh, and by the way, you lose whatever service was was paid for with that tax. Well, the city council can't do that. They can, the legislature, I think it's kind of a little bit of a political game, if you will, but the legislature said, well, you know, if a county wants to do away with the business personal property tax, we're not doing away with it, but if you want to, you can. Now, of course, the city council has the requisite number of votes on this issue, so they get to make the decision. What they cannot do is restore the funding through some other funding source. And even if they assume that the funding will shift to real property, it can't in every instance because, as I wrote in the resolution, if you don't have what's called room under the cap, the 1% constitutional limit, you can't make it up with a shift from business to residential real estate. And of course, shifting tax burden around is tax policy. I mean, that is part of what fiscal policy is all about, is picking winners and losers. And so this backs us into a real dilemma. And, you know, it's interesting, this board has really stood behind its parents and its students. We were there, and we took the arrows when we did the traveling roadshow to explain that we were losing significant amounts of money and could not continue to provide transportation outside the transportation districts. We had a lot of angry folks at those meetings. Many understood, but we were there on the front line. It wasn't the legislature who enacted the tax caps showing up in the Snyder cafeteria. It was the Fort Wayne Community School Board who has had to make do with less as a result of those tax caps. If you'll give me, please, I want to share something. I taught John Stafford's class Thursday, and we talked about the Indiana constitutional tax caps for a good couple hours. And at the end of those 2 hours, I said to those students, I said, now, I want you to go back in time 2.5 hours. At 5:30, if I had asked you, would you vote to limit your property tax to 1%? How many of you would have said yes, not knowing anything about the impact of the tax caps? And of course, they all raised their hands. I said, you know, that explains it. How many of you would vote yes now? And there wasn't a hand raised because we talked about the ramifications of the tax caps on governmental units. Well, here, the city council would do away with this funding source, and Fort Wayne Community Schools, who doesn't have the ability to enact user fees, who can't transfer the tax to real estate due to the tax caps, will simply be out the money. And what that means is that the services we provide, which are supported by this tax, including our transportation fund, our capital projects fund, and our debt service fund, will take the hit. So, you know, the reason I invited them to attend our budget sessions is if there is a sense that we have this money sitting around and we're wasting it, then tell us after our budget sessions where you see it. Because this board, I think, I've served on a number of boards, and there's not a board I've served on that has been more frugal and diligent with respect to fiscal integrity than this one. So that not being the case, the question is, do we as a board feel the need to speak out in support of our parents and students so that we don't have to give them more bad news with regard to service cuts, especially given the final point, and that is in John Stafford's report, he concludes that there is no empirical evidence that tax abatements or the reduction in the business personal property tax has created any jobs because they have no information on the supply side of that equation. That is to say, what the demand for a business's product is and whether they're already operating at the maximum they can afford, such that the reduction in the business personal property tax simply go to the bottom line to create a bigger profit for them, but not necessarily result in expansion because that depends upon the demand for the product they make, and they don't have any of that information. I can tell you this with regard to that point, however. I was part of the team that negotiated the tax settlement with General Motors, And General Motors resolved the issue in a manner that was determined to be best kept confidential. Certainly what they pay in taxes is not confidential. But anybody can look on their business property card and see that they pay business personal property tax. And that was a part of the matters that were resolved with them. It wasn't but a month to 2 months later that they announced a $1.1 billion expansion with business personal property tax on their tax bill. So I would just have to tell you that what we would be seeing in this case, I think, would be a very unfortunate drop in services with absolutely no evidence that it will result in this plethora of new jobs that would somehow make up our loss. And this district is not at a point in its history where it can afford any further reduction. Dr. Robinson and I have talked a lot about this. She and I attended a Chamber of Commerce meeting last week where we presented the other side of the argument. The Chamber voted this down, which is telling. And we also attended a press conference with the other school districts and the other units of government on Friday in the mayor's office, where we stood arm in arm asking that this be turned down. And at that time, we did allude to the fact that we would be asking the board to approve this resolution tonight. So that's all I have to say. I'm happy to answer any questions on it that you might have or listen to any other comments.
How is this presented how is this presented to the result after we vote? Then do we just send it to them, or do you present it to them?
Well, I'm going to speak tomorrow at a public hearing. I've been in touch with Councilman Yale on this, who's been providing me with the information I would need to come to the meeting. He's been very accessible to me, and we met once, and we exchanged emails actually as recently as this morning. So I will go tomorrow and indicate, if the resolution should pass tonight, indicate that it's passed.
Okay.
I just have one question.
Sure.
Is Councilman Arp's proposal an actual repeal of the whole personal business tax, or is it inventory tax, or is it a phasing it out?
Yeah.
Of new business.
Okay, and that's
So
a good question.
I would just
Yeah,
want to know,
yeah.
because
Right.
I haven't followed the issue
Right.
real
Let me
closely.
Yeah, what he would do is he would, in essence, what he is proposing to do is to allow the existing property that has been taxed, to remain subject to the business personal property tax. No new property added. However, the existing property drops in value each year according to a statutory schedule until it hits a 30% floor, where it remains until it's no longer on the books at all. So with each year, by not replenishing the previous year's top rate, the top rate becomes a rate that's one step further down the ladder until it joins all of the other property at 30%. So in calculating the loss to Fort Wayne Community Schools, we have taken so there will be no property at that top rate. There'll be no property at that rate. So we know what the loss of that property is, and then you can. So what they've done to figure out the loss is simply take that number and use it as a multiple. But that understates the value, because the next year there will be no property at the second. So it actually will increase at an increasing rate. So the estimate of loss, I think, has been understated. But we would be at $2 million within, I would say, 3 years easily, and that was the point at which we had to drop service to our students. We might get there earlier than that, but certainly over a 10-year period, we were looking at 8 million, and that, again, is conservative. I think it'll be much greater than that because it didn't take into account how each year you lose the property at that
depreciation.
rate. Yeah, it just keeps going down.
Depreciation yearly.
It
goes down.
depreciates according to it's essentially the IRS depreciation schedule that's been incorporated into the Indiana state law. So what you have is each year, it's not a multiple of the loss of that year's property, it's the loss of each rung on the ladder down. Okay?
Oh, and then one more thing. Which areas of our budget would be hit by this bus replacement transportation debt service? Is there another area?
Well, it's a
would
tax,
affect
yeah,
budget.
it's a property tax elimination. So only those funds that are dependent upon this tax would be affected. So those include capital projects, which have already been sorely depleted as a result of the tax caps. And you've all seen that in your sessions with Kathy Friend. And then the transportation fund, which has been taking a hit, as well as the bond debt service fund. So that's why the resolution focuses on transportation. Any other questions or comments?
Friendly amendment or change, and I think you had acknowledged that you did not have a professional typist. In the very first line, and I think you corrected it as you were reading it, whereas an ordinance has been introduced to the, rather than.
Yeah, I mean, I would like the permission of the board to
Sure.
proofread this and
Make those changes to the Scrivener's errors?
there are about 3 or 4 that I
Okay.
changed as I read it. So
That's fine with me. I mean, I have no problem in
all right,
allowing you
thank you.
that leeway.
Thanks. Sorry about that. We'll fix the spacing as well and probably double space it.
What about the margins?
Certain things I shouldn't assume, but I did.
Type is a little small, too.
You think? Anyway, all right,
Well, I think this is a good move for us.
okay. Well,
And
Yeah,
did you speak to the other school districts at the press conference? Are they, those boards doing the same thing?
We gave them copies. Their meetings aren't the same, but I would assume, because several had the board presidents there. Southwest did. East Allen was a rep, too.
East Allen was there, Southwest was there, Northwest was.
No, he was doing a presentation in
Okay.
Indy.
And some of you know this. I mean, I represent the Allen County Assessor, and I as recently as 10 days ago, addressed the State Association of Assessors, and I do that every year and do their continuing education stuff. So I have a little bit of an advantage over some of the other board members because this is what I do. But I have to say, it's not that I'm in love with the business personal property tax. I'm really not. That's not the point. It's that it's kind of pulling the rug out from under us without that bird's eye view of how to rearrange the chairs so that everybody has a place to sit down. And that's the real problem with this. And I think those councilmen, and I don't want to speak for them, they'll speak for themselves in the coming weeks, but I think some of the councilmen who have called me have expressed some of the same concerns. They're not, they don't really like this tax, but they don't have the fiscal authority to do all that they would like to do if they were to eliminate this. And it's kind of a, perplexing situation for some of them as well, but they get the fact that it puts a number of the units in a bind.
Do you need a motion and second on this, Mr.
Yes,
Chairman?
I do.
I would move that we adopt the resolution regarding the business personal property tax and that the chair be authorized to correct any technical errors and then make the presentation to the city council.
Thank you.
At its forthcoming meeting.
I'll second that.
Okay. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Is there anybody opposed? So carried. I want to thank all of you for that. Then that takes us to the part of the agenda for reports or statements on district goals. Dr. Robinson, have we scheduled the work sessions?
We've got one, I sent out notice the 21st and the 23rd. We talked today about the topics. I'll get that to the board.
Okay.
We also have individual meetings that board members are signing up for. We sent that out too.
Yeah, and what we need to do, every once in a while, the officers will get together for scheduling purposes, but we want to make darn sure that the other board members get briefed on whatever it is that, we decide there. And there are times when I'll run out of that meeting and forget to do it, so I want to make sure that we always do that. That's important. And I'll get a summary of the last officers' meeting out to the rest of you. We can also, from time to time, if somebody's not going to be there, just rotate other people into those meetings so that everybody kind of gets the same access to information. That's important to me.
If I could, along those lines, we
Yeah.
met today, and we're beginning to have Tuesday afternoon sessions with different departments.
Okay.
And Kathy's going to be doing her budget presentation on the 26th. We're going to have another brief presentation on activities that took place this summer around student retention and recruitment.
Okay.
So
Good.
what we're going to try to do is to start back again, making sure that as we have work sessions, we're also having board reports, so you can start seeing people who are doing the behind-the-scenes work. Won't make them lengthy, 5-10 minutes.
Sure.
But we'll try to, if necessary, get material to you ahead of time to give you some concept, but just kind of a warning. We think those two topics go hand in hand.
And are you able to give us, I know you don't want to commit, I don't mean to put you on the spot here, I didn't tell you I was going to ask you, but are we doing okay enrollment-wise, just in a general sense?
We're doing, yes, not the kind of dips we saw last year. Still, the enrollment final day is not till this Friday. So I can give board members some more concrete numbers then, but I would say steady or flat, or close to flat. So we're doing well in comparing that to official enrollment. So official enrollment was this time last year compared to what official enrollment was. We're pretty much flat. So we'll give you some more details about that, but not the major drops we had last year.
Great.
But the reason we're doing the report is to tell you some of the things we did.
Good.
To ensure that
Great.
we didn't have that again.
Okay. Well, you and your team are doing a great job. We sure appreciate it. Probably getting over the initial rush of the back to school and now getting into a little bit more of a routine, but.
But every board member, every board meeting, our intent is to bring you, because we're doing some very strategic 12-month planning. We want to talk about in our work session, what are the goals you'll hear when you're in your one-on-ones with me. And we've got to get back to that concept of what's on the balanced scorecard, what are we measuring, how are we doing it, and I want you to, we'll just do that in public. So I think we need to have some topics related to some of the things we're trying to do this year. So every board meeting, we're going to attempt to have different departments come and talk about very specific things around issues occurring in the district and with parents and what we're trying to get done.
Great. Anything else, Bob? You got the floor?
I think one of the board reports we want to have to a work session first is around we spent the afternoon with the people who are connected with the new FACE Center. And I think one of the synergies the FACE Center is starting to have is the realization that there are a lot of different individual projects, Title I, ELL, those types of things, that we can do a better job collaborating. Because one of the things that we're going to be facing as a district, you were talking about this personal property tax, ESSA and the reauthorization will impact us in terms of special ed funding, Title I funding. This is also the year that the legislators are starting to look at what the formula will be. So I think we better be prepared, this board in particular, to have some stances on what all that means, because you know that while legislators make decisions, you as a board and us as an administration have to face parents.
Okay.
And so we want to be a little bit more proactive with what we see coming down the pike. Tracy's working with, she's like our chairperson. We are working aggressively with the state to try to look at what are some things we could do differently with Title I and special ed because of ESSA.
Good.
So we're trying to not wait until it's done, and we're trying to portray the picture of what the impact of all that has on an urban district, because pretty much there aren't very many of us left. and we want to maintain, the stand we have in terms of doing the right things for kids. So we just want to talk about that, and as Mr. Giaquin has said, we'll try to get some of that planned out with officers, and we'll continue to make sure you know what those are. But that's our intent, more work sessions, and then board presentations, some of them related to what we did in work sessions.
Okay.
So we planned a little bit of that today.
And the other thing along those lines is I will be scheduling an executive session so that we can discuss the superintendent contract. That was put on hold due to Tim's unfortunate illness and death, and so we're back on it. I've got a draft in progress. Actually, I'm not typing that myself. That is in typing as we speak. But anyway, I want to get everybody together so we can talk about that as well, because we're behind schedule on that issue. Okay, great. Well, thanks, Dr. Robinson. Let's then open it up to the board members for comments. Steve?
Briefly, just a pleasure to meet Jeff Roberts, our Teacher of the Year, and the other finalists. They certainly have a gift for teaching. They all had choices as to where they would plow their trade, and they chose us. They choose us. It's a challenging district, but I commend them, and they represent the district well.
And I would echo that. I thought it was very exciting this evening, meeting all the finalists for the Teacher of the Year award. And again, it's very inspiring to see the kind of dedication all our teachers give to our district and to their students.
And I totally agree with that, and it's probably the most fun reception we've ever had, because we had kids running all over the place. And it's really a testament to the families and the support that the teachers have, and all their friends and family were there. So it was a really special evening. I enjoyed it.
Yes, agree, and congratulations to all the finalists and to Jeff Roberts. As the Roberts family is a pretty impressive educational group as a whole. But also, a shout out to our nearly 2,000 teachers who, and other staff, administrators, and aides, but are in the classroom every day, doing difficult work. But it's it's a labor of love. When there's probably no more exciting feeling, same as a parent probably, when a child really gets it, the light bulb goes on, and that's probably one of the greatest rewards that there is in teaching. So thanks to all of the teachers in our district. And I wanted to give a shout out to one of our community partners, Townhouse. The Townhouse is a retirement community north of the north end of Fort Wayne. And they partnered with Holland Elementary last year and started a fundraising program to help teachers purchase supplies for their classrooms so they wouldn't have to spend their own money. And this year, year two, they actually raised $7,500 to give every teacher at Holland Elementary a $300 gift card to what's the United Arts and Supply. But I just thought that was incredible. And then they hosted a luncheon the beginning of August to what was the teachers thought was just going to be sort of an appreciation luncheon, and then they got their gift card, which was sort of a surprise for them. But that's just, and we have a lot of partnerships like that that we've heard about in the community. But I just wanted to, and that's mostly coming from the Townhouse has its owner has a foundation, but most of the money, the bulk of the money, came from just donations from the residents themselves. So.
Many of whom are
thank you
teachers.
to them. Many of whom are retired. That is true. I've spoken to several of them before, and yes, and they're proud of their teaching careers too.
Cool.
So thank you to the Townhouse.
Every time I hear a teacher like Todd Roberts speak, or any of the teachers that were here tonight, I'm always so impressed and so inspired by them, and it just also makes me sad, and I guess I don't understand why our legislators can continually attack them. I mean, do they not listen to them? Do they not see what they do in these classrooms? So I guess I commend them for continuing on even under their the attacks and feeling attacked, because they do incredible work for us and for our children.
Thanks, Ann. A couple comments taking up on that point. I think it's easy to attack a stereotype, and until you, and that's why I always say, and I know all of you do, is, we'll visit a school, and that's why Principal for a Day is so important. So if you have individuals who perhaps view public education through the lens of this distorted stereotype that you can read about in perhaps, I don't know where, maybe they exist in some communities, but certainly not here. And my guess is that if you went into any of those communities and went into those schools, you could defeat the stereotype there as well. But anyway, if you have folks who you think need that kind of immersion therapy, Principal for a Day exists for that very purpose. Point two, Dr. Robinson and I and Kathy attended the chamber meeting, and what a thrill it is, first of all, to walk into a room where the group has so much respect for this superintendent that, walking into the room, if I were to have done that by myself, I would, I think, likely have been seen by some as an adversary with an agenda, but because of Dr. Robinson's participation in that group, my role in presenting sort of the board view and the non-pedagogical, the non-educational, but the policy issue was so much easier. And I want to say publicly that to have a superintendent who commands the kind of respect in the community she does is really quite an advantage. It was also felt very natural for us, and I don't know if other people noticed it, but we're there as a team, board, superintendent, and I hope that came across to the individuals in the room who serve on boards, that's who we are, and that's how we roll. So that was a good thing. And then finally, I want to address this getting ahead of the curve issue. It's been recently announced that the next agenda on the Friedman Foundation's list, and perhaps our state legislature's list, although I have a hard time believing that given the deficits that are rolling up with the voucher program, are these educational savings accounts. This really takes this to a whole new level of irresponsibility, in my opinion. And it is just my opinion, not the board, so I'm giving it simply as mine. But we are hardly into the voucher program and its overall impact on the budget needs of public education students before we would move into a whole new era where you would simply give a family X amount of dollars to spend themselves on the educational, the homeschooling, or whatever other educational novelty comes down the road. We started this experiment with the idea that the charter program would be highly regulated, so that if in the event the new idea, the innovative idea that we wanted to encourage was a bust, we'd know it very early to limit the negative impact that experiment would have on children. Well, as we all know, we've gone actually from more oversight to far less oversight. There's virtually no oversight of the private school budgets. You can't go to their budget meetings, even though they're your tax dollars that are accruing at an alarming rate. And now the notion that we would take even more money out of the common school fund, an institution that was revered for 150, 100, 200 years as one of the most important institutions in the history, really, of the world, that all individuals, no matter from what walk of life, no matter their economic circumstance, would have the right to an education, the right to pull themselves up from their bootstraps, and we would now disassemble that and give those funds out to be privately spent in whatever way an individual chooses, will, I'm afraid, be one of the final nails. I won't say it's the final nail, but it's getting really close to the final nail in the public education coffin. And I don't understand why we are to that point. Why with our graduation rate hovering between the 85-90%, Wayne looks to me like they're going to hit that 90% mark, which is awesome. I don't understand why, when we have a laboratory like Fort Wayne Community Schools, it can't be used to say or to instruct how we can make public education work. And so I would urge you, if we're going to get ahead of any curve, that's the curve we better get ahead of and get a sense of how serious this discussion is, because we need to know everything there is about that. We can't be caught flat-footed again with this phony baloney notion that the money follows the child and all that other stuff. That's all been blown up by the reality of the current voucher system. None of that was true. And this time around, we should lead the way as the state's largest public school district to ensure that cannot and does not happen. So, look, we'll probably have another resolution one of these days, but let's all educate ourselves on that topic. I have nothing else, and we do want to entertain at this time a motion to adjourn our official business meeting.
Move for adjournment.
Second.
Motion, a second. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
So the meeting is officially adjourned. We do have a few guests here.